Starting off, guys, with the worst card in Clash Royale, we got the Mirror. Playing the same card, but having to pay one more elixir is just not going to be worth it in most scenarios. It makes your cycle very awkward, and it has just been a bad card for a very long time. Kind of just one you'd play for fun. Next up, guys, we got the Clone. The Clone has also been horrendous for a very long time as well, with counters to it being very prevalent, like the arrows, the poison, and the tornado. Even Lava Clone, Giant Skeleton Clone is pretty much never seen these days. We got the Rune Giant. Ever since they removed her ability to permanently enhance, she has been atrocious. She's not a reliable win condition at all either, dealing very little damage when she attacks, making her a very unreliable card to use. The regular Skeleton Army, guys, is very bad. The only reason people use this card is for the evolution that they eventually get to, but the standard version is very weak and just way too vulnerable to spells. The Goblin Giant, guys, is the worst win condition in the game for the most part, ever since they gave him 3 nerfs in the last set of balance changes where he's got less health now, and then he got 2 nerfs to the Spear Goblins on his backpack, and the evolution and the regular version are just so bad now. The Void is also a very bad spell. Not really any deck where it's a requirement. In Lava Hound, E-Golem even typically prefer running other spells, and it's just not really a necessity ever, and no one really ever knows when you're supposed to use this card. There's no clear way of knowing how you're supposed to get value out of it. The Goblin Machine, guys, is another card they absolutely killed recently, kind of like the Goblin Giant. The Goblin Machine you can't really use in anything anymore ever since they gave it pretty big nerfs to the rocket damage it deals. It has fallen off a ton, and it is now for sure one of the worst cards in the game. Barbarian Hut, guys, is the worst building in the game. Definitely a card that needs either a rework or an evolution in order to be viable. It just costs way too much, and it's just too vulnerable to spells. The Wizard and the Witch, guys, both kind of have a similar fate where the regular version is just really bad. People use them only for their evolution. The Wizard evolution happens to not be very good. The Witch's evolution is a bit better, but they're both kind of known for being mid-ladder cards, especially the standard version, and they're pretty much always going to be worse than other substitutes you can use instead of them in majority of decks, which is why I think that they're in F tier. And then the Goblin Demolisher, guys, this has really fallen off. Even inside a drill decks, you're just way better off using something like the Bomber, for example, which is just going to be getting way more value in pretty much every single circumstance. So I definitely think it's F tier as well. And the other card we're going to start off with, guys, or end F tier with, is going to be the Royal Chef. I think that the Chef is the worst tower troop in the game by far. Ever since they gave it the health nerf, it's pretty much been dead. No one's running it even at the top of ladder, not even really a single deck it fits well in. So for that reason, I think it's the worst tower troop in the game, and it is going to be getting F tier because every other tower troop is going to be better than it for sure. The Barbarians, guys, are going to start off D tier. They have been very bad for the longest time now. The Evo version's a bit better. The regular version, though, just dies to Fireball. It's not going to be good. Pretty much the only reason people are using them is to get to the evolution. Even Lava Hound decks oftentimes prefer running the Evo Valk over them now, so they're definitely very weak. The Little Prince, guys, is the worst champion in the game, in my opinion. Even after they removed the 3-card cycle, he's still proven to be a not very good champion. In fact, he actually seemed to probably suffer from that change because a lot of the reason people used him was probably for that 3-card cycle to then cycle rockets or miners on the tower quicker. So because of that, the Little Prince is definitely the worst champion in the game. There's not really any deck that you want to use him in. The Electro Dragon, guys, is really bad, the standard version. Pretty much the only reason people use it is for the evolution, which is just significantly better. The regular version is just really weak and hardly gets any value. The Night Witch, guys, not very good either currently. I feel like pretty much the only deck you can fit it in is Giant Graveyard or Golem, but pretty much all Golem decks prefer not using the Night Witch in this meta, and they prefer other support cards like the Zappies, for example, which recently got buffed, and that's common in Golem, but the Night Witch, not very much. The E-Barbs, guys, kind of a mid-ladder card. Not going to be very good. They're very easy to distract and kill. Maybe it's a card that's eventually going to get an evolution soon because I think if it doesn't get one, it's just going to remain dead pretty much for ever probably, except the mid ladder. The Bats guys are really bad. They fell off a ton after the minions buff. Now that the minions have that range buff, they're just better in every way, shape, and form. So it's just replaced the bats, especially the regular ones. The regular bats are really bad and get pretty much no value. The Eaglem guys is going to be next. It's one of the most unreliable win conditions in the game. It's very matchup dependent, and it definitely has more bad matchups than good matchups. So it really relies on your opponent playing bad. And the Mega Knight guys, especially the regular Mega Knight, the evolution isn't even that great in and of itself, but the regular Mega Knight especially, not very good. I just think that Mega Knight Ram Rider's not in a good spot, and pretty much the only Mega Knight deck you can use is the Wall Breakers. The Wall Breakers recently got nerfed, though, and it's just not going to be that great except on mid-ladder, and I think it's very easy to counter if you know what you're doing. And it's definitely been getting worse and worse recently, it feels like. The Gob Curse guys, ever since they removed the damage amplification, has been a lot worse, and it has been struggling a lot, without a doubt. So there's not really any deck you see it in except maybe an occasional Lava deck. The Goblinstein guys is going to be a close second for the worst champion in the game. I think it's not that much better than the Little Prince, but I will say you could use it inside of a Splash Yard deck if you really want to, or maybe a Hog deck, but it is going to be pretty bad for sure, and all the other champions are noticeably better than both the Little Prince as well as the Gobstein. The Sparky guys is going to be next. I feel like it's been suffering for such a long time. So many stuns, so many just spells that counter it very easily. Like even the E-Spirit and the Lightning going to be so solid against it, and Evolutions tend to be really good against it as well. So it's been struggling, especially with the Gob Giant being in a bad spot. Spirit Empress did get a small buff in the last of the balance changes for the ground form, but the ground form is still pretty bad. The air form is still a lot worse than what it was, and after all the nerfs that ended up, kind of indirectly nerfing the Spirit Empress, she's been a lot worse since then. The Zap guys is going to be next. I feel like the Zap is just really weak without the evolution most of the time. The vast majority of the people using the Zap are playing it to eventually get to the evolved version, but you could use the regular Zap if you want, maybe inside of a P.E.K.K.A. or a Lava deck, but it's just going to be drastically worse without a doubt. The Inferno Tower guys is going to be in D tier as well. I feel like the Inferno Tower is for sure one of the worst buildings in the game. I think that it's just too expensive. It's very inconsistent. It's going to be really bad against bait decks, cycle decks, and it's really only going to be good in a few matchups, and it just seems to get worse and worse every meta, and it could be another card that could use an evolution soon for sure. The Furnace guys fell off a ton. It was one of the most broken cards, and then after they ended up nerfing it a few times and finally with it moving quicker, you've been kind of seeing it fall out of the meta a ton. You might occasionally see it in Graveyard, but that's about it, and it always requires the evolution. You can't really run the standard version anymore. The Healer guys is a bit better than the Eaglem because occasionally some people have been using the Healer inside a Golem, but it's still pretty niche and off meta, so I would say that she's D tier now. And the Archers guys are pretty much only good inside of Expo, which is why they're not really that good, and I'm having them in D tier as well. Very vulnerable to spells like the arrows, and they're just pretty weak, and it's just limited to Expo. The regular Royal Recruits guys are pretty bad. I know the recruits are annoying, but they are actually very bad, especially all the nerfs they ended up getting, especially the evolution. And the standard version, pretty much no one plays. Even after all the nerfs the Evo recruits got, the regular recruits still almost never get played. And I just think the regular version is so easy to counter without you having to worry about them charging. And I think that there's just a lot of ways of defending them, especially in this meta with the Evo Ghost being as good as it is. I feel like the recruits are very bad. The Phoenix guys, even though it got a small buff, it's still really horrible. There's pretty much no one running it. There's no deck that requires it. You could maybe run it in RG if you want, but pretty much everyone is running the Hunter inside of Royal Giant, so there's really no point in using the Phoenix. The Battle Ram guys and the regular Executioner and the regular Gob Cage, I feel like, in my opinion, all kind of, it's the same reasoning for why I have them in D tier. I feel like all the standard versions for these cards are very weak overall. Like the Battle Ram, the Executioner, and the Gob Cage all require their evolution in order to be viable. The standard version, before they got the Evo, they were all pretty weak cards. So they kind of get carried by their evolution. And that's why I think just the standard version for the card is just very weak. And obviously in this list, I'm ranking based off of the standard version, not the evolution, because I rank the evolutions on a different tier list, which you guys can watch if you're interested in. The Dagger Duchess, guys, is going to close out D tier. The Dagger Duchess is a bit better than the Chef. There's some people that like using the Dagger Duchess in giant decks, for example, or maybe a bridge spam deck. You might occasionally see her. The Chef, though, there's not really any deck you'd want to use it in, which is why I think the Duchess is better than the Chef by a little bit. We're going to start off C tier, guys, with the Magic Archer. The Magic Archer is okay, maybe in P.E.K.K.A decks. It really fell off a lot, though, after the Tornado nerf, because that Remy Ellie deck with the Magic Archer Tornado and the Wall Breakers, you can't really run anymore. So it's pretty much only limited to P.E.K.K.A and Bridge Spam, but a lot of times now Bridge Spam decks prefer running the minions over the Magic Archer, so it's really not that great. The Lumberjack, guys, is going to be next. I feel like this is one where the standard version is a bit better than these other standard versions in D tier, but a lot of times the Evolve Lumberjack is significantly better than the regular Lumberjack, and in a lot of decks now, you actually see the mini P.E.K.K.A being used instead of the Lumberjack oftentimes. Even in Golem, you'll commonly see mini P.E.K.K.A over the Lumberjack because the mini P.E.K.K.A was just buffed a couple times and it ended up surpassing it in strength, I feel like. The Giant Skeleton, guys, is going to be next. I feel like it's a very niche card. You know, you've seen it more often maybe inside of Royal Hog decks and Graveyard, but it seems to be for only a short time. It's very short-lived, and then it falls out of the meta again typically. So it's okay. It's just never really required in most decks. The Heal Spirit's going to be next, guys. I feel like because it's one elixir, it's very like low risk, but compared to the other spirits in the game, I feel like it's not as good. I will say it's decent inside of Three Musketeers, but I just still think it's the worst spirit in the game, which I guess really goes to show that all the spirits are decent value. I just think it's the worst one because it's pretty much only in Bridge Spam at the moment in Three Musketeers, and obviously there's a lot of Three Musketeer decks that don't use the Heal Spirit. Minion Horde is going to be next, guys. It definitely got a lot better after the range buff, but because they nerfed other aspects of the minions in the Minion Horde, it's definitely not B tier or higher than that anymore, but it's going to be pretty decent inside of Mortar decks, I feel like, or Spam decks. The Minion Horde can definitely get a lot of value. The Suspicious Bush is definitely a weaker win condition. I think it's very unreliable because spells tend to be very good against it. I think that if your opponent has a building as well, and with all the Evo Cannon in the meta and Cannon in general, I think it's just a pretty weak win condition, but you definitely can make it work, and it can be annoying in certain spam decks. The Firecracker, guys, when they nerfed her knockback, she definitely got a bit worse, but I feel like Hog EQ is in a really good spot in this meta, especially the Evolve Firecracker, but I feel like the regular Firecracker is really not that good. There's hardly anyone that runs the standard version. It's always the Evolution, so I feel like she's still a below average card, especially after the knockback nerf she ended up getting, even though she is very annoying for sure. And the Ewiz, guys, is going to be next. I feel like it's kind of just an average support card. You know, you'll see it in maybe P.E.K.K.A decks or Giant decks, but I think there's a lot better options than the Ewiz, especially even just things like the minions, for example, or even the Zappies after the Zappies got buffed. I feel like there's just a lot better options than the Ewiz. The Snowball, guys, is going to be next. I feel like inside of Loon Cycle, it's decent. That's kind of the most common deck you see it in. You can fit it in some other things as well, but Loon Cycle, it's really good, and you prefer, of course, running the regular Snowball over the Evolution, and even sometimes Drill players like running the regular one over the Evo now, so it really depends on the deck. The Tesla, guys, without the Evolution is definitely a lot worse, but I still feel like the Tesla is a better building than the Inferno Tower, for example, in the Goblin Cage. It's just a bit more consistent, being only 4 elixir compared to the 5 elixir Inferno, and then the fact that it can hit air as well is going to make it really good against balloons and things like that, but I still feel like it's lacking a lot compared to the Cannon and a couple other buildings that I'll get to as well. The Goblins, guys, are pretty much only good inside of Hog X NATO at the moment, and I mean, maybe you can make them work in a Gob Drill deck, but you're usually going to be better off running guards and also skeletons, especially, which just tend to get more value. The Mortar, guys, the regular Mortar for sure is kind of an average building. I think pretty much everyone running the Mortar runs the Evo. The standard version is really hard to use. I just think it's very weak without having that extra firepower from the Goblin and that faster fire rate. And I just think with all the tanks in the game, like Golem is in a way better spot, and even Electro Giant, it maybe can be hard to get a Mortar Lock on the tower, and there's a lot of Earthquake in this meta as well. The Skeleton Barrel guys, especially the standard Skeleton Barrel, I feel like it's definitely I'm gonna zoom out because as I add more cards it interferes. But the Skeleton Barrel guys, definitely the standard version I feel like is not really that good. I think you have to use the evolution because the standard version is just so easy to counter with buildings and spells. And before the Evo was added, it was never really that great. But you could use it in a Mortar deck. The Monk guys is gonna be next. The main problem with the Monk is it pretty much is only good inside of one deck. It's really only good inside of Royal Giant. You can't really use this card inside a bridge spam like you used to see it all the time with the Ram Rider. It pretty much is just limited to RG, and not all RG decks have it. It's kind of, some of them do, others don't. So for that reason, I think it's kind of an average-ish champion. It's better than the Gobstein and Little Prince, but it's not as good as some of the others. The Ram Rider guys is going to be next. I think she's worse as a win condition now. She got that nerf alongside the Prince and the Recruits where the charge was impacted, and I think that definitely made the card a lot worse. She's not dead. There are some people using the Ram Rider with the Boss Bandit, but it's a lot less than before now that it takes her longer to charge. It's definitely a lot easier to stop her, and there's a lot of fishermen in the meta as well. The Expo guys is also kind of in a pretty mess spot in this meta. I think that the Expo isn't horrible. There's a lot of good Expo players having success with it at the top of ladder, but it's Expo, it's like one of those win conditions you really got to main it and be a one trick with it, and those Expo mains do seem to be doing okay this season. Not as good as a few months ago because I think there's more Earthquake in this meta, and maybe the Evo Ghost as well is really annoying for Expo players, but it's definitely in an okay spot. The Freeze guys is going to be next. I feel like after the Vines nerf, there's been a lot of people running the Freeze again, so it's in an okay spot, especially inside a Graveyard Freeze. I feel like that's where you're going to notice it the most. It can get some pretty decent value, but besides Graveyard Freeze, you're not really going to see it in any other deck, so I think it's kind of an average-ish spell or a little below average. The God Barrel is not in an amazing spot currently. I would say Bait isn't super OP in this meta because there's a lot of people running the Bard Barrel, the Log, the Arrows, the Vines. There's a lot of good counters to Bait currently, and it also requires the Evo Barrel. Like, no one is going to run just a regular barrel without the evolution. The regular barrel is really not that great. I really think the Evo Barrel kind of saved Bait and revived it in a way, but even the Evo Barrel is not even that outstanding, especially after the nerf the Decoy Barrel ended up getting several months ago. The Flying Machine guys is pretty much only good inside of Recruits and an off-meta Lava deck. It's really not that good, even though it might be annoying sometimes. It's pretty much limited to only a couple decks, and there's going to be better support cards than it. Spear Goblins fell off a lot after the nerf. They ended up getting, I believe, to their first attack. It impacted the card quite a ton, especially when you're cycling it at the bridge or just defending. It changed a lot of interactions. So now you just might occasionally see it in like a Mortar deck or some Baity deck, but you just don't see it in like a ton of different things anymore. Musketeer, it's a bit better than the Ewiz in my opinion, but once again, there's just going to be a lot of better substitutes than the Musketeer in a lot of decks. But obviously 2.6 in Loon Cycle, you are going to see it a lot, but in the very meta decks, not as much. The Princess is actually not as good in this meta as she is most of the time. I think a big part of the reason is because of the Evo Ghost. There's a lot more people running the Dark Goblin than the Princess in this meta. I'm not really sure why that is, but it might be because of the Rascal buff, and the Dark Goblin pairs very well with the Rascals, and just Bait maybe isn't super amazing in this current meta because of all the Bard Barrel, the Log, in the Vines. Even the Vines, that addition, another thing that can kill the Princess, obviously. The P.E.K.K.A guys is going to be in C tier. I feel like she's kind of in an okay spot right now, kind of average. I will say, actually, the regular P.E.K.K.A is probably being used more than the Evolution. Some people do like running the Evolution. I guess it comes down to personal preference, but, I mean, it's all right. I think, regular P.E.K.K.A bridge spam is okay. It's definitely not one of the most dominant decks in the game, but it's like if you are a P.E.K.K.A enthusiast, it's definitely going to be all right in the meta. I kind of think of it as Expo. Like, you can use it if you want. Like, it's viable, basically, but it's not OP. The Megumin guy is definitely better than the Phoenix, but it's still pretty bad compared to a lot of the other flying cards that I feel like are a lot better. But, I mean, the Mega Minion, at least it's going to be better inside a Lava Hound, for example. It actually has a deck that it fits very well in, and you could use it inside of a giant deck if you want as well. But it's really nothing too crazy. You know, there's going to be better options. The delivery is okay. I mean, Royal Hog Cycle, I think you can use it in if you want. I don't really see in this meta a lot of people running Miner with delivery. Most people running the Miner in this meta are running different spells, I've noticed, but in Royal Hog Cycle, that's going to be the main deck you see the delivery. But a lot of people running the Evo Royal Hogs are running other spells and not the delivery. The Hunter, guys, is going to be C tier. The problem with the Hunter is the only deck it's good in is Royal Giant. It really is just RG. And, I mean, you can use RG with something else if you want, even though most people do run it. With the Hunter, it's just going to be the Hunter. And, I mean, this is the problem with the Monk. Like, you pretty much can only run it in one deck. And even though you could say that's similar with the Fisherman, it's pretty clear the Fisherman is a more OP card compared to the Hunter. The Hunter is just kind of... It's just... People have it in RG for that air support, basically. But I really don't think it's all that. It's just good in one deck. The Skeleton Dragons, guys, are going to be next. I think that they're going to be okay in things like, I guess, maybe Golem, or I don't even know. Because you don't even need to use them in Lava. Nowadays, a lot of the Lava decks don't even play them because people prefer Minions or the Evo Baby Drag. So they're just kind of meh. They're not even in Mortar that much anymore. Mother Witch, guys, is going to be next. She's going to be pretty decent inside of Bridge Spam decks. Not really a necessity, but she's going to be decent with the P.E.K.K.A, the Battle Ram, things along those lines. So, I mean, she's all right. It's really matchup dependent, I feel like. If you're against a bait deck or a Swarm, she can be very good. We're going to close out C tier, guys, with the Cannoneer. I think that the Cannoneer is definitely better than the Duchess, but not by a lot. It's pretty obvious probably to a lot of you guys that the Princess Tower is by far the best tower troop in the game right now, and it's not even close. That's why, literally, besides the Princess Tower, the highest for the tower troops is C tier. Cannoneer, though, is going to be all right in Mortar, but really, even a lot of the Mortar decks are running Princess Tower now. So that's pretty much going to be it, besides the Princess Tower, which you guys probably all know where that's going to be. We're going to start off B tier, guys, with the Cannon Cart. The Cannon Cart is in a really good spot, especially inside of Mortar decks, and a lot of Bridge Spam decks are running it as well. Even some bait decks after the Rascal buff, I feel like the Cannon Cart has definitely made a bit of a return. It was kind of in D tier for the longest time, but it's a lot better now after the meta shift. The Lava Hound, guys, is going to be in B tier. I feel like this is always a viable win condition and always kind of average-ish. I think it's not as good as the Balloon, as per usual, but it's very good. You know, with most people are running it in this meta with the Balloon and the Evo Baby Drag. You could use a Lava Miner deck if you want. I'm not seeing as much of that this meta, especially after the Curse nerf. But you could still use that if you want, and, you know, I think it's a fine win condition, as it usually is. The Dark Prince, guys, is going to be next. After they gave it a buff, it's definitely helped the card out quite a lot. I think in things like Electro Giant and Golem, it's going to be really good. In Giant decks, I think it's nowhere near as good as the Ghost, but, you know, it's going to be a really decent support card. The Rage, guys, is going to be next. After the nerfs it ended up getting, it's finally fallen off quite a lot. It's just not a requirement in, like, a ton of different decks anymore, and you mostly are seeing this card in Toxic decks still, even after the nerf it got. So, you know, stuff like E-Golem, it's going to be pretty good. Maybe Bridge Spam decks it could be very good in as well, but it's definitely not A or S tier anymore after the nerf it ended up getting. This might surprise you guys. The Tombstone is actually going to go in B tier. I've been seeing it a lot more in this meta. Like, pretty much every Lava Hound deck, I've been seeing the Tombstone in it nowadays. And I just think it combos really nicely with the Evo Valk that so many people are running. It just gives you a really solid defense, and I've been seeing a lot more of that in this meta, or even a lot of Graveyard players. I've been kind of seeing the Tombstone make a comeback, and I would say it's so much to the point that I would say it's a bit better than the regular Tesla, especially the regular Tesla, not the Evolution. It's in a pretty fine spot right now, especially inside of heavy decks. Even Royal Giant with the Skelly King Tombstone can be pretty decent. The Graveyard, guys, are going to be next. The best Graveyard deck in this meta is Graveyard Freeze. I'm actually not even seeing a ton of Splash Yard in this meta. or Giant Graveyard, which is why I actually don't even think that it's A or certainly not S tier in this meta. The Graveyard's definitely seen better metas, but it's still an okay win condition. I still think it's average, but it's just not an amazing meta for the Graveyard. But it's still okay. And Skeleton nerf definitely impacted as well. The Boss Bandit guys are going to be B tier. I know this is a really like hated card and a lot of people think she needs a nerf, but I'm going to be honest right now, the reason I think she's B tier is because the main deck she's being used in, I don't know what people are doing on mid ladder, but I can tell you at the top of ladder, the only deck people are using her in is this very specific Ram Rider deck with the Evolve Executioner. There's not really anyone running her anymore inside of these like log bait spam decks with the Suspicious Bush like they used to. I think the Three Musketeer buff has kind of caused her to be a little bit worse, as well as the Rascals buff, because she doesn't really tend to pair well with those things. And I just think the meta shift in general, more people running the Tombstone. So she's definitely not A or S tier at the moment. The E-Giant guys got helped out a lot by the Evo Baby Drag. Definitely a B tier win condition right now, I think, because it just combos so well with the Evolved Baby Dragon, which is one of the best Evos in the game. And speaking of the Baby Drag guys, I think that it's a B tier card, the standard version. I think the Evo obviously is really where it's at, but the regular version definitely not too bad itself, especially after the splash damage radius buff they ended up giving it, I think several months ago. We're kind of seeing that effect now, especially with the Evo. So definitely, a very good card at the moment in heavier decks, like with the E-Giant as well as the Golem. But the standard version, definitely not anything crazy like ARS. The Bandit guys is going to go in B tier. I feel like it's very good inside of bridge spam decks, especially with the P.E.K.K.A, the Battle Ram. I mean, you could use it in the Mega Knight as well. Three Musketeers it can fit in. So just, it's good in spam decks in general. Not as good as the Ghost, though, but definitely a very solid card. The Gobdrill guys is a pretty balanced win condition, I feel like, right now. Going to be very good with the Cannon and the Evo Snowball or the regular Snowball. I think it's pretty balanced. It's not as good as the Miner, but it's a very good and consistent win condition for sure. The Inferno Drag is going to be next, guys. I feel like the standard version is very good still, even without the Evo against beatdown decks. It's going to be great comboed as well with the Lava Hound inside of Graveyard Freeze. It's going to be really good, and then it's really going to be good at countering things like Lava Hound and P.E.K.K.A, Giant, and even Cycle decks can have a difficult time dealing with it sometimes if they don't have a solid reset. Skeleton King guys, ever since they reduced the radius of where the skeletons spawn out of, it has definitely been a bit worse. It actually was an A tier, I would say, before they did that, but the nerf definitely brought that down. Now it's, I would say, in B tier. It's still going to be pretty decent inside of maybe like Mortar decks or inside of spammy decks with the Skeleton Barrel, but it's definitely not as good as it was after the nerf. This might surprise you guys, but the Elixir Collector is actually in B tier. The biggest reason for this is because of the Three Musketeers. I thought that the nerf the Elixir Collector got was going to make the card drastically worse, but actually because of the Three Musketeer buff, I guess it was a smart idea to give that a little bit of a nerf because it ended up actually being better in this meta just because of the Three Musketeers. And Golem is also in a really good spot right now as well, which you can use the Elixir Collector in too. The Bomber guys is going to be in B tier as well. I feel like this is a card that used to be a lot better, but it's actually a lot more balanced now after the nerf it ended up getting. I believe it got a hit points or a damage nerf, and that kind of brought it down to B tier. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still going to be really good inside of drill decks, and then you can use it in more expensive decks like the E-Giant as well if you want. The Bomb Tower guys has been really good recently, especially inside of Loon Cycle. I feel like Loon Cycle has really been where it's just been, I just feel like dominating a lot in recently. And I'm trying to have this zoom be like the proper size. But yeah, it's been very good inside of Loon Cycle recently. You can use it inside of Miner decks as well. New bait decks with the Rascals. I think that's a solid building. It's got a lot of hit points, and that splash is useful against the Royal Hogs as well. The Poison guys are going to be next. It's way worse than the Fireball in this meta. It's not even close. I would say the best Poison deck right now is Miner Poison. I think Splash Yard is really bad right now as well. There's not a lot of people using Splash Yard. And yeah, it's not even A tier. I think it's significantly worse than the Fireball in this meta. The Archer Queen guys is going to be next. I think she's a very solid champion in this meta because of her pairing basically with the Evo Royal Hogs. I think she's really good in that Royal Hog cycle deck. And I mean, she could be decent in some off meta decks too, maybe with like the Mega Knight or inside of some Battle Ram Bridge Spam deck. But she's definitely not as good as a couple other champions I haven't gotten to yet in this meta, but she's definitely okay. She's kind of a slightly above average champion. I would say a bit more versatile, especially compared to the Monk, for sure. And the wall breakers are going to be next, guys. The nerf they ended up getting was actually pretty significant, them dealing less damage. Both the regular wall breakers and the Evo got a nerf, and I think we're seeing the effect of that. We're finally seeing the wall breakers not be really, really OP. There's still definitely an above average card without a doubt, but I have not been seeing as much minor wall breakers recently after the nerf has come in, which really is saying a lot. The Ice Golem, guys, is a really good card in this meta. I usually don't put it in B tier. I usually put it in C or D, but in this meta, it's really, really good because of the Three Musketeer buff. There's so many people using the Ice Golem in Three Musketeers. And then, of course, it's really good inside of 2.6 and Loon Cycle. So there's 3 decks where it's really solid in this meta, especially Three Musketeers and Bridge Spam. It's made a really big return recently, and I think it's definitely deserving of B tier. The Fire Spirit, guys, is really good inside of Goblin Drill decks, and I think inside of Hog, it's very good as well. You can use it inside of minor decks too. It kind of comes down to personal preference. I think the Fire Spirit in a lot of decks can really be almost as good as the Ice Spirit, or just as good, and Royal Hogs can be really good in as well. The Gob Gang, guys, is going to be next. I think that it's a bit more balanced after the Spear Goblins nerf, and you don't see it like all the time, and it's more limited now to Bait and Mortar, I would say, and you can kind of pick and choose what you want between the Gob Gang and the Guards. They're kind of pretty similar in strength, I would say, at this point. Like, it's really not too far off anymore. The Giant, guys, is going to be next. I feel like he's a pretty balanced win condition overall. He's decent in this meta, especially with I see a lot of people run it with the Evo Skarmy, especially. That's commonly where I see it. Maybe they have it in like a Sparky deck, or with the Prince, for example. And of course, there's some people still running Giant Graveyard. I've even seen some Giant Balloon. He's just a solid tank. I think he's just very consistent no matter what the meta is. And I've been seeing a lot of him at the top of ladder, which is definitely pretty surprising because I wouldn't have expected it. But I think it's because of the Gob Giant nerf. The Gob Giant nerf is kind of an indirect buff to the Giant. So a lot of people kind of switch back to the Giant. The Ice Wizard, guys, is going to be next. I feel like in this meta, the Ice Wizard isn't as OP as it was, because I think Graveyard's not in an amazing spot, so there's not as many people running the Ice Wizard, because you always see it in Splash Yard, but Splash Yard's not really meta at the moment. So the main deck you're seeing him in is Graveyard Freeze. I'm also not really seeing him in Mortar anymore like he used to be in, so definitely the usage rate of the Ice Wizard has dropped quite a lot. The Prince, guys, is going to be in B tier. I feel like after that nerf where the Prince, takes a bit longer to charge now, that definitely helped balance him out a lot more. Maybe still an annoying card for a lot of people to deal with, but I think he's way more balanced now. And, you can use him inside of Rascal's Bait if you want, or inside a Giant, for example, or maybe even inside of a Golem deck if you want, but it's definitely not OP anymore, without a doubt. There's been a lot less people complaining about him. The Bowler, guys, is going to be in B tier. It's going to be really solid inside of Graveyard decks, as well as Electro Giant. Those are going to be the 2 main decks you see the Bowler in. I feel like he's not too OP, though, because he's not super versatile. It's definitely a bit limited what you can run him in, but he's got a lot of health, and the defense is really solid for sure. The Rascals, guys, are way better. The Rascals ended up jumping a few places. They're actually a good card now. Inside of Mortar and inside of Bait deck, guys, they're actually very, very solid. I feel like they're finally at the point now where they can get some value. Even if the other person has arrows or a log, they can actually finally get some value now before they get taken out after the buff they ended up getting. So I'm glad that they finally figured out how to balance them, because they have been dead for the longest time, and we're actually seeing them in this meta now, which is pretty crazy inside of Bait and Mortar, which is something we have not seen in quite a while. So I would say it's pretty cool. The Berserker guys is going to be in B tier because she was impacted quite a lot by the nerf she ended up getting. I believe it was her hit speed. It was either that or her damage that she ended up getting a nerf in. And the main deck you see her in now is Gobdrill, I would say. Something like Golem she could be good in as well, or maybe a graveyard deck, but you're not seeing her constantly in every single deck anymore. So I would actually say she's B tier. You could maybe say she's A, but she's certainly not S anymore. That's for sure. The Royal Hogs, guys, the regular Royal Hogs are going to be what we close out B tier with. I think the regular Royal Hogs are way worse than the Evolution. I think before the Evo was added, the Royal Hogs were kind of a B tier win condition. So I think the standard version being B tier is very realistic for the regular version, for sure. We're going to start off A tier, guys, with the Knight. I feel like the Knight is actually not that amazing right now. I think that the Knight is not being used as much because of the Evo Ghost. A lot of people have actually swapped to the Valkyrie. There's a lot of people running the Valkyrie, especially the Evo Valkyrie, because of the Ghost, and the Knight kind of has been replaced in that regard, I feel like. So now you're pretty much mostly seeing him inside of Graveyard, and that's the main thing, or maybe Expo, but I feel like he's not in every deck anymore like he used to be, but I think it's just the specific meta. The Golem, guys, is going to be next. The Golem is a really good win condition right now, and the main reason why is for a couple reasons. I think the Elixir Collector is in a pretty decent spot at the moment, and I just think there's been a lot of things recently that have been added that have been good for the Golem. Even though the Chef ended up getting nerfed, I feel like the Evo Baby Drag just pairs so well with the Golem. The Zappies, which recently got buffed, pair very well with the Golem as well. You can use the Evo Ghost with the Golem too. And I just think that the Vines, even though they got nerfed, they're still a very good spell, and they happen to pair very well with the Golem as well, helping the Golem out quite a lot, making it just a strong win condition right now. Even at the top of ladder, you're seeing it quite a lot. The Earthquake, guys, though, is very good in this meta, especially with the Evo Royal Hogs, as well as the Hog Rider. There's so many people using the Earthquake, especially with more people using the Elixir Collector. It's promoted more people to run the Earthquake. Even things like the Tombstone, another good reason to run the Earthquake, as well as the Cannon, just to allow you to break through buildings. It's just a very solid spell. The Dark Goblin, guys, is very good in this current meta. Definitely way better than the Princess, for sure. There's so many people running the Dark Goblin inside of Mortar decks. It pairs very well with the Rascals. A lot of the bait decks just tend to prefer the Dark Goblin in this meta over the Princess. The Dark Goblin is also way better than the Evolved Dark Goblin. Most people are running the standard version over the Evolution and then two other evolutions, but it's just in a great spot right now inside of spammy decks. A lot of people are using it. The Valkyrie, guys, is going to be next. I think she's, for one of the first times in a while, better than the Knight in this meta, and a large part of it is because of the Evolved Ghost. People just do really want to have that Valkyrie as a way of countering the Ghost. The Evo Valkyrie also pairs very well inside of Lava Hound decks. Just, you're able to defend pretty much everything. Hog X NATO, she's going to be very good in as well. And just having that splash is going to be really helpful. I mean, even inside of Graveyard decks, you could run her as well. But air decks especially, she's just going to be very solid in. A lot of Golem decks are actually running the Valkyrie as well. They're either using the Valkyrie or the Ghost. The Vines, guys, are going to be next. This might surprise you guys, but even after the nerf that the Vines ended up getting, they're still a very solid spell. They're a very solid spell. I kind of want to check how long to... Okay, it's been about 40 minutes so far. So the Vines, guys, are a very solid spell currently. Even after the nerf they ended up getting. In beatdown decks especially, they're so good inside of Golem decks. They're really good inside of Lava Hound decks. They're really good with the Balloon. They're good with the Ramrodder as well in Bridge Spam. And even after the nerf, they're still a well above average spell, especially in heavier decks. They're just not good in Cycle anymore, but inside of beatdown decks, Bridge Spam and Control, they're amazing. Even with the Graveyard, they're still very good and provide a lot of value. But they're finally at the point where they're not broken, which is nice. The Golden Knight, guys, this might surprise you guys. He's one of the best champions in the game right now. The reason why is because of the Three Musketeers. The Three Musketeers pair so well with the Golden Knight. It's not even only the Three Musketeers. Inside of Bridge Spam, he's proven to be very successful recently with the Battle Ram, for example. You can use him with the P.E.K.K.A as well, and he's also going to, you could use him inside of some Drill NATO deck as well, and Graveyard Freeze. He's just a very versatile champion at the moment. Those guys are an A tier. They're definitely not S anymore after the Radius nerf they ended up getting. There's so many other spells you can use instead that are going to be more valuable, but they're still a very good spell at the same time. I mean, they're going to be very good maybe in a Mortar deck, inside of a P.E.K.K.A deck. You could use them inside a Lava Hound if you want as well. You know, they're going to be decent, but they're just not going to be needed nearly as much. The Ice Spirit guys is going to be next. I feel like it's not the best spirit in the game at the moment, but it's definitely a very well above average card. It's going to be very good inside of a lot of your typical cycle decks, whether it's Hog, for example, or with the Royal Hogs. It's going to be very solid, of course. The Gob Drill, you maybe prefer playing it. It's better than the Evo Ice Spirit. The Ice Spirit prefers to be played over the Evolution after the nerf it ended up getting, because it impacted the Evolution more. The Rocket guys is going to be next. It's a very solid spell, even though it's expensive. There's so many people that like running this card inside of Goblin Drill decks, inside of Logbait decks, even inside of Expo. Some people like running it. And Miner Control, you could use the Rocket as well. It's just going to fit well in a lot of the cycle decks and control decks. It's a reliable way of getting damage on the tower at the end of the game if you can't break through with your other cards, and then you can use it defensively to defend big pushes as well. It's just been a very good spell recently. The Gobhut guys, after the nerf it ended up getting, it finally feels like it's not S tier anymore and no longer the best building in the game. I'm going to have it in A tier. It's still going to be very good with the Evo Royal Hogs. It's going to be good inside of Graveyard decks, and you know, you could probably still use it inside a Miner if you want as well, but it's just not going to be able to fit in every single deck in the game anymore. It's definitely a lot more balanced. The Earthquake also helps balance it out too. I feel like you have a spell that ends up getting some pretty good value against it, so I think it's in an okay spot now, even if it is still a little annoying. The Mini P.E.K.K.A guys is really, really good right now. Definitely, I think it's an A tier. It's really good inside of heavy decks, like with the Golem, for example. It's so good. With the Giant, it's very good. It's just, after the buffs they gave it so many buffs, like hit points, damage buff. It's just made it so much better to the point now where you can fit it in a lot of the beatdown decks, a lot of the control decks. The Evo Baby Drag pairs very well with it as well, making it just go even faster. So it's just definitely a solid support card to have inside of your beatdown deck right now. The Zappies guys are going to be next. They're very good after the buff they ended up getting. They just stun like crazy now. They're really good inside of Golem decks. That's one of the main decks I see them in. You can use them inside of Royal Giant as well if you want. They're going to be very good inside of Recruits too, but the fact that you're seeing them in Golem now really goes to show how much better they are. They're just absolutely insane on defense, and just having them inside of a heavier deck is just great, and it's going to make your defense a lot stronger for sure. Definitely a very underrated card after the buff they got. The Three Musketeers guys are a lot better after the rework they ended up getting. I don't think they're S tier because I definitely do not think they need a nerf. I don't think they're crazy broken, but they're a lot better guys. The Three Musketeers are for sure an above average card after the rework they ended up getting. You're seeing them so much more now in the meta. You don't even need to use them with the Elixir Collector anymore. There's people using the Three Musketeers with the Evo Royal Hogs in a more cycle Three Musketeer deck with the Ice Golem and the Heal Spirit. There's that deck that came out, and then there's a lot of people using it with the Battle Ram, the Evo Ghost, the Bandit. A lot of different variants of Three Musketeers that you can end up playing, and I think them giving them that health buff so they don't die to Fireball Zap or a Poison has really helped them out a ton, and that melee attack too has added another mechanic that has helped them out in more situations, so they're just a lot better now, without a doubt. A very successful rework, I would say. The Mighty Miner guys, I think, is the best champion in the game right now. He's very good inside of Hog Cycle. That's kind of the main deck where you're commonly seeing him in. I think that's mostly what he's known for, but you can run him inside of log bait decks as well. He's going to be very good. I feel like, too, there's some people using him with the Evo Royal Hogs and the Evo Baby Drag. That deck has kind of came back a little bit. You can use him with the Goblin Drill as well, and he's just going to be a very nice tank killer. I think his ability is very solid, and he's one of the champions that wasn't impacted very much by the change where you don't have that 3-card cycle as much, because having 2 Mighty Miners down can be very valuable, especially if you're against a Golem deck, a Giant deck, something along those lines, which there's a good amount of in this current meta. The Balloon Guys is going to be next. I definitely don't think it's S tier in this current meta, but there's definitely a lot of people running the balloon. It's a very, very good win condition, I would say. I think that it's, every meta, it's always very good. There's a lot of balloon decks that don't require the Lava Hound, which is why I feel like it's always better than the Lava Hound. You always have the Loon Cycle decks that are very good. The Miner with the balloon. It's a very strong combination, and with the Lava Hound as well. It's just very good. It's just a very consistent win condition. I don't think it's broken and needs a nerf necessarily, but it's always a well above average win condition. The Log Guys is not in S tier for one of the first times. Might be a shock to you guys, but it's really just not. It's really just not as good compared to the Barb Barrel. There's just a lot less people using the log after all the nerfs it ended up getting. I guess it finally caught up to the log after a while. I think that the Barbarrel's better in a lot of scenarios now that it doesn't deal as much damage, and you really do see that, especially with a lot of the heavier decks, but even a lot of the cheaper decks are putting in Barbarrel now. So the main decks the log is going to be in now is, of course, something like Expo. You're still going to need it. 2.6, you're still going to need it. Some of those cycle decks, like Miner Cycle, Royal Hog Cycle, but you really don't need it nearly as much anymore. So I think it's A tier, and it's finally not the best small spell in the game anymore. The Guards guys are going to be next. I think they're a bit better than the Gob Gang, but they're definitely worse after the nerf they ended up getting. It's balanced them out a bit. I mean, you can use them inside of things like Mortar if you want, Miner decks, Lava, but they're going to be a lot worse for sure, and I definitely don't think they're S tier anymore, but them surviving arrows does make them pretty valuable. The NATO guys, after the nerf NATO ended up getting, I don't think it's S tier anymore, but it's not really good inside of cycle decks anymore, but inside of the heavier decks, like with the Electro Giant, it's so good. Or like Golem, for example. Also with Hog X NATO, it's very good as well, but inside of cycle decks, like with the Magic Archer, it's definitely a bit worse. So I don't think it's S tier at this point in time in this current meta, but the King activations, you do get a lot of value for sure. The Hog Rider guys are going to be A tier. I think it's one of the best win conditions right now, without a doubt. I think it's the second best win condition in the game, or, well, second or third, but I think it's even better than the Balloon. Hog X NATO is really solid in this current meta, and 2.6 has made a bit of a return. Hog X NATO is in a great spot, and then there's just a lot of off-meta hog decks you'll see people making it work just because of the solid win condition. You can mix and match it with like a lot of different cards and have success with that. The Lightning guys is going to be next. I think it's a very solid spell in this meta. Not as good as some which we're going to get to, but I think that especially inside of heavier decks like with the Golem, Electro Giant, there's even some people running the Royal Giant with the Lightning as well. Not as much as the Fireball, but it's still, I think, a very good spell among the heavier decks in the game. And I think we kind of have been in a beatdownish meta for a while, but especially in those big 3 decks I named, Golem, E-Giant, RG, it's just super solid in. There's some people using it with the Evo Royal Hogs as well, and some Gob Hut decks. I forgot to mention that. So 4 decks it's really good in. The Fisherman guys we're going to close out A tier with. The Fisherman, the only reason I don't think it's S tier is because it's pretty much only good inside of Royal Giant. It already got that nerf a few months ago where it's not having as much of a slowdown when it grabs units. So I think that's the one thing keeping it from being S tier, and the fact that you only can use it inside of Royal Giant. You cannot use it in anything else. And that ability, though, the mechanic of it, pulling things away, getting the king activations, just like the tornado, it's a very broken feature, and it might end up being S tier in the next tier list, but I'm putting it top of A just because Royal Giant, I think, is carrying it quite a lot at the moment in the Evo Ghost. We're going to start off S tier, guys, with the cannon. The cannon is the best building in the game right now, without a doubt. Now that they nerfed the God Putt, it's interesting. The last few months we've been switching between the cannon and the God Putt. It's been going back and forth. 100% is the cannon now, again, after the God Putt nerf. The Evo cannon is absolutely nasty to another level, but even the regular cannon, guys, I think the regular building, just the regular cannon, is way better than just any other regular building in the game right now by a lot. You should get so much value for only 3 elixir. It fits well in every single cycle deck, whether it's Hog Cycle, Royal Hog Cycle, Goblin Drill, Log Bait, and then heavier decks you can use it in as well. Like, you can even use it in Graveyard if you want, or Electro Giant, and it just provides you so much value defensively, especially the evolution. But even that regular cannon, I mean, you got to use it twice before the Evo, and it still proves to be very valuable. The Royal Ghost, guys, I know it's the evolution that's broken mostly, but the thing is, guys, the regular Royal Ghost is very good as well. And even before the evolution was added, it was always like a top 20 card, typically, because of the invisibility factor, the splash, it having a lot of health for only 3 elixir. It's just a very solid card, and this is very obvious in this current meta with the evolution, but I think I just gotta put the regular Ghost in S, because unlike a lot of the other evolutions in the game, the standard version, let's not kid ourselves, guys, is still an absolutely phenomenal card. It's not even just in Royal Giant. You can use it inside of... You're seeing it in Golem, which is insane that the Ghost is in Golem decks. You can use it inside of Bridge Spam, of course. You can use it inside of a Miner Poison deck, for example, and 3 Musketeers you can use it in. So you can fit it in just so many different decks. You can run it with the Mega Knight as well. Fits really well with the Evo Royal Hogs. You can just fit this with so many different things. It's just such a versatile card. The regular Royal Giant, guys, I'm actually putting it in S tier, because this is the same thing as the Ghost. So the Royal Giant, guys, is the best win condition in the game, in my opinion. The Miner is a secondary win condition, so I kind of want to talk about this at the same time. The Royal Giant, though, is a win condition, 100%. It's straight up a win condition, right? It's the best win condition in the game, in my opinion. The evolution is almost always used with it, but the standard version is still a phenomenal card. You have to use that standard version every time you get to the evolution, and the standard Royal Giant, just like the standard Ghost, is a very good card. We saw it in every single duel set in the World Finals. Everyone was running the Royal Giant every single time. It finished second in the world last season on ladder, and it combos so well with the Ghost. So these two cards, you just gotta have an S tier in this meta. It's just a really OP combination, these two cards, and the standard version are very, very good, and it is the reason why their evolution is very strong, because the standard version is very good, and the Evo Ghost and the regular Ghost just complement the RG so well right now. The Miner, guys, I still think even after the nerf the Miner got, is still an S tier card. Absolutely phenomenal secondary win condition. You can just fit it in so many different decks. I mean, it's crazy how many different decks you can fit the Miner in. It's going to be really good with the Balloon, with the Lava Hound, Miner Poison, Miner Rocket, Delivery you can pair with the Miner as well. So you can mix and match pretty much any spell you want with it. It's going to be really good with the Giant as well. You still see some people running that sometimes, and yeah, I mean, you can just and Mortar as well, like with spammy cards, baity cards. It's the type of card that I feel like really is never gonna die completely. And I don't even think it needs another nerf. It's just a very solid card. The minions, guys, are gonna be next. I think even after the range nerf, or the range buff is why they're so good. They did end up getting nerfs, like the hit speed, I believe, and the damage. That's what they ended up getting nerfed. And I still think it's proven to be very strong. Like, same with the Miner. It's just so versatile. I mean, the minions are so good inside of heavier decks, like with the Lava Hound, of course. You could even use them in Golem if you want. But then they're good in Bridge Spam as well. They're good with the Miner, so they're good in cheaper decks. They're good with the Mortar. And they pretty much killed the bats. They've single-handedly killed the bats. The minions range buff. That's why the bats and the Evo bats are not very good. So, I mean, they're definitely S tier. They're just a really solid card. The E-Spirit, guys, is going to be next. This is the best spirit in the game without a doubt. One of the biggest reasons for this is because of how good the Royal Giant is right now. The E-Spirit is so good inside of Royal Giant decks, as well as Expo. Decks where you don't have to worry about a King activation, the E-Spirit is just so good in. And it's also very good with the Evo Royal Hogs as well. There's a lot of people using the E-Spirit with it. You can use it inside of a Hog deck as well, which a lot of people do. Hog Mighty Miner Firecracker is running the E-Spirit oftentimes. And it's just nice to have that chain effect. It's going to be really good against spammy cards, and I just think it provides a lot of value, especially after the nerf that the Ice Spirit got. I think the E-Spirit has just undoubtedly been the best spirit in the game, and it might eventually need a nerf soon to make it more on par with the Ice Spirit after the nerf the Ice Spirit ended up getting. The Fireball, guys, is going to be next. This is for sure the best medium or big spell in the game right now, and it's not even close. I could go on and on about how many decks are using the Fireball right now. It's pretty wild. I mean, you can use it in Royal Giant, of course. That's obvious. Pretty much all Royal Giant decks are running it. It's going to be very good as well inside of Expo, for example. 2.6, Lava. Pretty much all the Lava decks are running Fireball with either the Vines or the Evo Zap. It's going to be really good with the Giant as well. It's just pretty much good in a lot of the beatdown decks, a lot of the control decks, and sometimes even Cycle. It's just really good to have that direct damage, and you're getting knockback from it as well. It's going to be pretty good against the Three Musketeers, even though the Three Musketeers have more health. Fireball Log or Fireball Barbell kills them, so that's a really nice combination. They're really good against the Evo Royal Hogs as well, which so many people are running in this meta. Next up, guys, we're going to have the Skeletons. The Skeletons are really good as well. The regular version is better than the Evo because you want to use 2 other Evos most of the time. Really good inside of Royal Giant. Really good inside of Hog. Really good inside of Royal Hog Cycle. They're good with the Goblin Drill. You know, you could use them inside of Bait if you want. Inside of a minor control deck. You know, they just fit well every single Cycle deck and Royal Giant, which is kind of common knowledge that, you know, everyone knows they're very good for keeping your cycle quick. Very good inside of cycle decks. And lastly, guys, well, second to last, we got the Barbarian Barrel. And then no surprise, of course, we got the Princess Tower, you know, like 90% use rate in the top 200. Obviously, it's the best tower troop. It's not even close. The Barbarrel, guys, is way better than the Log right now. Let's not kid ourselves. Pretty much inside of majority of decks, you're better off running the Barbarrel, except with the exception of some cycle decks. Inside of Royal Giant, guys, we're always seeing people use the Barbarrel over the Log. Inside of Bridge Spam, we're seeing the Barbarrel. Inside of Three Musketeers, we're often seeing the Barbarian Barrel. It's very good inside of Golem as well. Very good inside of Electro Giant. With the Graveyard, of course, you're using the Barbarrel as well. The reason why, guys, as well in this meta, it's really nice to have that tank against all the ghosts that people are using, whereas the Log isn't really going to serve any purpose. The Barbarrel is still going to be just as good against a lot of the baity cards like the Gob Barrel, as long as you're timing it, and if they're juking it, if you're on point, it's going to be just as good as the Log. And it's going to be nice against things like bandits as well, boss bandits, where you're going to have that distraction. So it's just providing a lot more value after all the nerfs the Log has ended up getting. And maybe it's going to end up needing a nerf, or the Log might end up needing a buff if they want to try to even it out again. But yeah, the Barbarrel is definitely, I would say, the best card in the game right now. It's so good for supporting your deck, and pretty much half of the people are running it in the top 200, which really says how good it is. And the Princess Tower is just, everyone knows the Princess Tower. It's just after they killed all the tower troops, the Princess Tower is going to be the best one. It's kind of obvious. I think a lot of people prefer it that way, especially the pro players. I don't know if you guys do or not, but I do know there are a lot of casuals that wish some of the other tower troops were a bit better, because it's like, what's even the point of having them in the game otherwise? But that's up for debate, I guess. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. You can use creator code BOSS to support me in any Supercell game, and let me know in the comments below what you guys agree and disagree with. And thanks again. Until next time, guys.